Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Performance Talk. My name's Yul Gordon. My partner Chris Costa is on a little bit of a break right now, but I am here today with Dustin Steider. Dustin, how are you doing? And thank you for coming on and tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me. Yeah, Dustin Steider is me. Currently the director of sports performance at Chicago State University. Um, been doing the college coaching game for about 6 years. Um, yeah, just always excited to talk about what I do. I think it's a lot of fun. I think it's really cool. So thank you for having me.
All right, no problem. We always try to Dustin and I met at the national conference in Las Vegas, and it was hot. No, I mean physically hot. It was hot because I was walking back and forth from the Westin down the road
Oh,
from the thing, and it was almost a showstopper.
I
But
could not go outside.
we met there, so he's on with us today, and you know how our audience realizes that we like to get professionals at different spots in their career. So we call you early because the guys that are for in the first 2 or 3 years are still kind of learning the job. You know how that goes. So you're early in your
Absolutely.
career. You're early in your career. You got uh, a position at at a pretty big school as far as number of athletes goes. Um, tell us how you kind of worked your way into that in 6 years.
Sure. So, yeah, just a little background about me. Went to uh, a school in Pennsylvania, Indiana, University of Pennsylvania. Shout out IUP. Um, we got my undergrad there. Big state school. I swam when I was in school there. Got my master's at University of Pittsburgh. Shout out Pitt.
All right.
Uh, so was lucky to have a little local recognition with those bigger schools. So after I got my master's, moved into coaching college swimming. That was my first coaching gig, but with a desire to move into strength and conditioning because I never had that when I was an athlete. So it was a lot of us figuring it out for ourselves. So that's where my interest stemmed from. So yeah, I went on to get my CSCS. That's the Certified Strength and Conditioning Specialist through the NSCA where we met. And I'm also an RSCC, so that's a Registered Strength and Conditioning Coach. So that's a different designation for those who have worked in the college or pro setting for multiple
Right.
years. So that's having that education and certification bit is important, certainly, but you have to marry that with experience. So, I started as a assistant swim coach, and then I was able to, mentor under our sports performance coach at the time, and started doing more in that area, and then was at my first program for a year and a half, and then I was chosen to start the inaugural strength and conditioning program at Earlham College in Indiana. So if you don't know Earlham, you should take a look. They made a lot of noise while we were there. Um, yeah, started their program in 2019. I got there, and we all know how spring of 2020 went.
Right.
So that was a little hairy to navigate, but we did a good job getting through the pandemic and retaining athletes. And like I said, we were able to make a lot of noise, which was really exciting. We had four teams go on to be champions in 2022. Yeah, men's cross country, field hockey, women's volleyball, and baseball,
Okay.
all champions.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh no, just yeah, it was a very very exciting time. Um, but yeah, I had endeavors to get to the Chicagoland area, um, and making the jump from Division 3 to Division 1 was also very exciting. So that's how I ended up at Chicago State, where I'm currently been here for a year.
Okay.
So that's the
A lot of folks, when we come out of school at off of our masters or undergrad, um, you know, immediately you're thinking about the most glamorous job. But talk to us about the the benefit of going into a smaller school like you did and actually starting a strength and conditioning program?
Sure. So the first athletic director I had once told me, you have to go where you can make the most noise. And that's something that I've always, thought about and considered. And I know there's a desire to go to the big name schools that have an established program and they've shown that they can produce a thing. That's really exciting. And there's something. It's awesome. There's not very many bad things you can say about that.
Right.
But to me, I really wanted the chance to be given a shot. For me being a former athlete, there's nothing like asking your coach to be put in the game. Like
Yeah.
let me show you what I can do. And so that was never something that was scary to me, to be like, hey, we don't have anything. Like they had a Earlham. If we're talking about Earlham, what a place.
Right.
Yeah, in Richmond, Indiana, they had a weight room. It was used by the former football program, but they didn't have a strength coach, and unfortunately, they had to dismiss that program just while they had some recruiting issues. So the weight room was kind of unused. So they had stuff, but just no one was doing anything with it.
Right.
So they were like, we want to make that available to everyone, but there's no budget, and we don't know what it takes. And so it's like, yeah, we can make do with what we've got. A lot of people have gotten really strong without the bells and whistles. So
Right.
yeah, it's not scary. It's just so the willingness to, okay, how can we be creative to make a lot of noise?
Right. The going into a situation like that, I know, you want to, come up with, this fantastic plan, but you had just alluded to it by saying, hey, look, we don't have a lot, but we have enough. So these are the things that we can do, and this is how we can do it. How did you get buy-in from the athletes, and how much convincing, let's say, did it take for the athletic director and the coaches to get on board?
I don't think a lot from my end. I think there was, everyone was excited about the idea of having this new resource be made available. Yeah, a lot of excitement. Everyone was hungry for it. So I think the biggest thing was managing expectations.
Okay.
Just setting, just hey, we have a small weight room. You have 40 kids on your roster. It's not going to be easy to get them all in there at once. So, everyone wants to lift 4 days a week, but there are 17 teams and one of me, so
Right.
You just had to talk about how we can still make measurable progress just by being efficient, and we can get a lot of work done in 2 days a week or whatever it might be. So that was I'd say the hardest bit was not buy-in, but just more isn't always better. It's about efficiency. Yeah, management, absolutely.
I like that statement. I've used that statement a lot, that more isn't always better. And there's not always one right way to do things. You can do things multiple ways that are correct. So there are, I worked in a situation where there was a weight room available, but a lot of athletes, but there's only one weight room. So in that case, the girls weren't getting a chance to get in the weight room. So their coach came to me and said, hey, how can we get stronger and get all these gains with 1 day a week in the weight room? I said, oh, that's easy. That's you do these things away from the weight room so that when you go to the weight room, you maximize your time in the weight room.
Yeah, you have those things to check.
Yeah, so you got, my big thing, Dustin, was I carried throughout my career 5 basic lifts that I think every athlete can do and get a level of success from them, even if they don't do anything else. Squat, push press, hang clean, um, deadlift, and either some kind of pull, a shrug, or any kind of pull from the floor. Uh-oh. Stand by. Let's see if we pop back on. We're struggling with the network, ladies and gentlemen, just a little bit. Let's see if Dustin, that's almost called him Justin. There he is. He popped back in.
Sorry.
That's all right. No problem at all. We work through these kind of things all the time. Did you get my last statement though?
I heard squat. So what are the 5 lifts you coach?
Squat, hang clean, push press, deadlift, and then some kind of pull.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I usually mix that up with a shrug or whatever. Because occasionally,
a lot of. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, you're fine. But we usually put we'll mix that up based on the sport, the athlete, the need, the whatever. So, but those are just basic lifts that you can teach, that can help lead into Olympics type lifts, power type lifts, anything, and that way you don't waste your time. I won't say it like that. That way you can use your time efficiently in the weight room.
Of course.
So
yeah, and
go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say that's where I fall. Also, is I want whatever is done to be accessible, so that they know what they should be doing even when I'm not around.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have to be fancy. You don't have to have 100 bands coming off of you with whatever. It doesn't have to be that. Athletes always come in with stuff they've seen on TikTok or Instagram, and it's like, yeah, we can do that, but tell me how I do that with 30 athletes at a time.
And I'm going to have to hook you up to 15 different things. Your whole hour's.
Yeah, and then how do you do it alone?
Exercise. Yeah. How do you do it by yourself?
Yeah. So yeah, that's the thing. It has to be, efficient, but then also accessible. If I give an athlete a 40-page fitness packet, they're not going to open that. I have to make it 6. It has to be something that they can understand and endeavor upon themselves.
Now, I won't use names of schools or athletes because it's something I don't do a lot of unless I'm specifically asked to. But I've had professional athletes and, Division I college athletes come to me with their summer packet and say, "Coach, help me make sense of this."
Sure.
Not when you say Division I school, the first thing that pops into everybody's head is Alabama, where they don't get to go home over the summertime, or Ohio State. You know what I mean? Well, they're at the school year round, for the most part. So
right.
So they're being managed, and there's 15, assistants or grad assistants or whatever helping out with the program. But then a lot of schools, smaller D1s and on down, that summer packet goes home. Here's what you're supposed to do. And it has everything from the weight room to nutrition. I've seen summer packets. I don't know if you can see me, but I've seen summer packets this big. I've said,
yeah.
I said, there's not one athlete I know that's going to open that. There's a kid that used to tear his in half for me. And he would just take out the weight room part, the nutrition part, all the other stuff. He just threw it in the trash can. He said, I don't have access to any of this.
Yep.
So he'd bring out the weight room part, and he'd bring it to me, and he'd say, "Coach, help me make sense of this. I don't really know what they're asking. I got 15 numbers. I got 35 things I'm trying to do." And, I made sure that I cover for my brethren, in the field. So if I got a packet from what is it, Chicago
State.
Yeah, if I got a packet from Chicago State, I immediately know whose that is. And
Yep, and I put my name right on the bottom. I'll stand by my work.
and most of them I know who they are. I've been an independent practitioner my entire career. Worked with a lot
Hmm.
of colleges and high schools, but I just never got into that side of it. Uh, the we'll talk about some of that stuff a little bit later. But as you work through that, is that once I got that program, I would probably give you a call or drop you a note and say, hey, I got so and so here. He's working with me. Uh, what do I need to know about him, and what do you want to accomplish? That's how you work together.
Right.
And then private practitioners, because I always hear the guys, well, they won't let me in the weight room, or they won't let me work with their athletes, or they don't like me, blah blah blah. That's the first question I ask is as I go, okay, what happened? What did you do?
Mm.
And in some cases, nothing. It's just personality. In
Right.
other cases, the athletes come back with a pulled groin or something, or you can't hurt them because if as a private practitioner, if you hurt athletes, you're done, and
Yeah.
it's no accident. So you have to be
Right.
real. You have to be real careful, and you have to be real deliberate. And then, like I said, I would call you and say, "Hey, okay, he's going to do your program. I'll let you know if I find something that I think he needs to work on, or whatever I find, I'll let you know."
Absolutely.
And then
Yeah.
it's always worked good. We didn't hurt anybody. You know,
Yeah.
yeah, we I haven't hurt anybody. I can't say ever because I've had some kids get hurt. But when I start asking questions, it's like, "Hey, did you do the warm up?" No, I just jumped right in. I was trying to get finished. I'm like, you got what? Why do we warm up every day? Why did I spend the first 3 years with you, teaching you a flat out basic warm up for everything?
Right. And
So
I have that conversation with my athletes too. Is um, I would say some of the difference I see from being in Division 3 and then moving into Division 1 is a lot of the athletes, or not a lot, a few, some athletes at Division 1 are there because they've been really good at their sport for a long time.
yeah,
They've been specialized since they were very young, and
yeah,
they're good at their sport, but they've never really had to understand how their body moves or works, or just they had it and they never had to work for it necessarily. Certainly they've worked to hone it, but they've
right,
never had to come back and so that's always interesting. The how much ego can go into self-assessment. Just like, hey, can you call upon this skill anytime? Can you move that heavy thing whenever you feel like? Maybe not, and that's okay because we engage in comparative assessment when we play our sports. It's my skills against yours all the
right,
time, and it's like I think I'm better because I've been in the weight room and I've found my limit and I've pushed past it and I found a new one, and so I think that's the kind of my role, is to help them, to guide them through that journey of effort and outcome. More effort typically means a better outcome, but if it doesn't, let's talk about why. And there are things that we can ward off, and mitigate and optimize. But having that honest self-assessment can be hard because they've just been good, and
right.
now I'm asking them to assess why.
And doing things on purpose. And I think it's the same thing you just said, but my verbiage has always been, hey, we come here to learn how to do things on purpose, not just do them because you're good at them, or that you are bigger than everybody, or faster than everybody, or you have a little more skill than everybody. That'll get you that'll get you where you want to be from junior high to high school, and sometimes from high school to college. But after that, there's a level of work that everybody's going to have to be put in.
Right.
As you're talking to athletes about that, and coaches are coming to you and they're asking questions about specific athletes that you can answer. We can't answer all of them, um,
Right.
and we shouldn't answer some of them when they're given in confidence, but they're not dangerous or whatever the case may be, or personal. But when you're talking to those coaches and they want to know, hey, is how long is it going to take for Sarah to get quicker? How long is it going to take for Bobby to get stronger? They ask legitimate questions,
Hmm.
but sometimes as strength coaches and performance folks, we have to temper what we can do over time with what will be done, in a period of time, you know what I mean, and what you can expect. Because I had, and if you've ever had this experience, just chime in. But I had an experience once where a kid would come to training and we would do a lot of things and he would move perfectly. He would get in the weight room but his performance level just wasn't going up. He wasn't getting any better on the field. He's a soccer player. He was,
Okay.
and it took some real evaluation from me and his coach to determine, was it skill or was it physical ability.
Sure.
And physical ability wise is why he got his scholarship, because he could run, he was agile, he looked the part, but he was clumsy on the ball. He didn't really understand the game,
Hmm.
you know, but he was so athletic and so gifted physically that he got away with that, like you were saying, for a long time. So now it's time for him to
Yeah,
work on
and
some things. Go ahead.
yeah, certainly see athletes that way too. Um, and I've had teammates that were that way. We're just good, but yeah, the work ethic wasn't there. So having that conversation with athletes to set the tone of there's this is a journey. We are on the chase now. It's not always going to be available. You're not always going to be able to move that 5 extra pounds or shave that half a second off your time. It's not always going to be there, but we are looking for that every day. So one thing I do is I write prescriptions for my athletes. So like we have a maximal effort day. We see what max effort looks like, what our maxes would be, or projected to be, and then I write prescriptions for them. So trying to outsource some of that away from them, like knowing where they are in their competitive season. I might know that we have a game in 2 days, and so I'm going to turn those numbers way down. Um,
Right.
or I might know that they're coming back from a game and they're going to be pretty tired, and I'll turn those down. Or I might know that, hey, we're trying to push you a bit, so I'll turn them back up. But just outsourcing that from them, saying like, I know that this is available to you. I'm asking you to do at least that, but then the door's open to do more. In that last set, it's 6 reps. I know you can get 6, but what if you got 7? What if you got 8? That would show me,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I only think 6 is available to you because that's what my math says. But you know you better than I do. So can you get more? If you get more, we celebrate that to no end, and then we're on the chase again. What would it take to do
Right.
it again? We turn, and so
That's
I think that goes a long way. Just the
no. That's a
like,
that's a great approach, man. And when we talked back at the conference, we touched on 3 or 4 things really really fast,
yeah,
and then we were out of there. But this format, I like to get in a few questions as we go. Uh, how do you and I'll give an example because sometimes my examples are better than my questions. But the how do you uh, program and design for the course of the year? Now, for example, me, I talk to my athletes about in-season work, post-season work, off-season work and preseason work.
Hmm.
Because athletes think like that. They think,
Right.
okay, I'm in my competitive season. Okay, this is my postseason, meaning not only if I go further than the regular season, but also if it's right after and I'm not going to go any further. That's all.
Yeah.
That immediate time right after is the postseason. You could be competing still, or maybe not. So that you break that down a little further, but you got in season, postseason, off season, and preseason, and that's the way I talk to them, and they're like,
Right.
oh, okay, because when we start, I found that once at my shop, once we start putting up cycles and times and when you were in this phase and that phase. Boy, they were so confused. I confused
Yeah.
myself. You know what I mean? I mean it was one of those deals where I think I got you in this phase. I know you're this is preseason for you, right? You're a football player. It's late June. It's we our focus is not on seeing how much more you can get on your bench press. It's preparing you for the upcoming season and taking what you gained in the off season and putting that in a package that you can maintain during the in season work. That's what preseason is about.
Absolutely.
Then in season is managing all of that and staying strong during the season and not worrying about and staying healthy. You know what I mean?
Right.
And then postseason is about healing up. You know,
Hmm.
we talk a lot about recovery. We do all that stuff all the time, but the
Right.
focus
But the
the focus
levels will
yeah
change.
the focus on recovery and regeneration and all that stuff is postseason work.
Hmm.
Then off season it's about getting in it. It's about getting in it and making gains and getting those prescriptions like you said, and max effort here goes up a little bit. We
Right.
give a max effort more times during the week at that point than we do in season. So,
For sure.
but
And
anyway,
effort can look a lot of different ways.
yeah,
Managing those loads can, it can be, a completely new novel exercise that's very mentally taxing, but no weight. It's just moving your body differently. And yeah, so that effort management is important, but also very predictable. You kind of alluded to it with just like there are definitive seasons that we care about. We know when our championships are every year. So we can count backwards and know when we should be, peaking or whatever. And
right,
yeah, knowing the phases and cycles that we're in are really for the coaches. It's my
yeah,
brainchild. I don't expect them to know what I'm thinking,
right,
but I want them to. I want them to understand it. And so yeah, just framing it as like, hey, we are 8 weeks away from conferences. We have, 10 games in the meantime. We care about this one this week, and we care about this one, and then we care about our championship game, of course. But these other ones we don't care about. Or,
right,
that's from a sports performance. Like, I don't care if you're sore because the outcome of that game doesn't super matter, but we're going to try to make you not sore, but we have some time. So that's my approach. Is like it's predictable. We know what we
right.
care about. We know what we need to avoid. Cool. It's just checking boxes.
I find that athletes, and having been an athlete way back in the golden ages where we played every sport on grass,
Right.
and and you being an athlete, and a lot of us as coaches being former athletes, there's a there's an expectation of effort, and we talk about effort, but we have this expectation of what it looks like. So I try to explain it to athletes like this: we're going to chase, like you said earlier, we're going to chase perfection all the time. We're going to chase perfect all the time. But the only thing you can be perfect at is the effort that we ask for. If we ask
Mhm.
for 50%, give us 50%. If we ask for 100% in that effort, give us that effort. The exercise might be simple, but we need complete mental focus. We need this. We need that. That effort part of it. is what's going to make you keep stepping forward and make gains.
Yep.
You know, so we talk about that stuff. So on the professional side, when we're thinking about that as a professional, and again, I'll give an example for myself. My specialties are movement, energy systems, and management. Now, everybody says, "Well, shouldn't everybody's specialty be that?" I'm like, no, not really. I mean, everybody's going to do some of that, but what are your specialties? What do you look at? For example, everybody doesn't start at posture to start managing movement, but I do. You know, when you talk
Sure.
about energy systems, everybody doesn't break it down to the umpteenth level for every sport. It's a more of a general thing, and hey, we need to improve this, this, and this. For me, I want to know what the sport requires, and then I want to know what the individual athlete requires in that sport, and then I want to know what they have in, what their gas tank looks like, because then it's just a matter of how you think. It's not whether it's right or wrong or
Right.
how you approach it. It's how you think. And then management is everything from, helping you manage with the nutritionist, or in some cases, like you were at, what's the name of that school? Earlham. You were probably
Earlham, yeah.
You were probably partially the nutritionist as well. Because,
Yeah, as much as I could be.
Yeah, but in some cases, when you're having to manage a lot of stuff, you pick up things from other professions. Depending on what your program has, and you have to be able to talk about that stuff. But so, getting to the question is, how do you? What are your things that you say that you're focused on before you kind of start dealing out stuff?
Sure. So, just a few thoughts occurred. There's definitely the blending of the art and the science. So, speaking to, we know what athletes need. If we're talking volleyball, for instance, like we care about verticals, absolutely, as a key performance indicator. We care about being able to get low and move laterally well for our defensive players, and we care about being able to produce force or tension through your whole arc of your body as you go out for a block in our setters and blockers. It's like we know what we care about, but what do we have access to? So for me, working with high-profile athletes, if we're keeping the volleyball example, we have some excellent volleyball players at Chicago State. Also, Earlham, of course, has excellent volleyball players, but we might not have the best facilities. We might not have the same gym that they have when they go home to play with their club teams or professional teams, or national teams, some of them. And so for me, it becomes important to give them something that they can feel competent in doing and confident in doing. They should understand what they should be doing even when a coach isn't around. Right. And I want them to, be able to then guide themselves in that capacity. So, unfortunately, there's not a lot of time when they get on campus to when their first game starts to go through, measures of postural control or functional movement or whatever. We have some time, but coming back to making impactful data for coaches to implement, strength and sport coaches, is kind of the biggest thing. So what outcomes highlight the biggest aspects that we're trying to highlight? If that's a funny way of saying it. What key performance indicators will show us that we're making improvements in the areas that we care about? And then how do we blend that all together? The art of, okay, we might care about vertical jump, and we have a Vertec, which is great, but they might not have one at home. Or some place might have a force plate, and like that's great. That's even better. than our wobbly, vertical tester.
Right.
So it's that blending, and I think that's kind of what my specialty has become, especially coming from programs that didn't have a lot to begin with. But that's okay. Like, we can make a beautiful painting with just the palette of whites and grays that we have. We can still do that. Oh, we found red. Cool. Now we can add red into the thing. Oh no, we lost all of our green now. That's okay. It can still be beautiful. So that's, I think, where my specializing has come in, is
Well,
that ability.
that ability to manage that, man, that's critical because the first thing, and especially, I say young guys, but it really happens with all of us. First thing we do is walk into, so I even private practitioners. I can tell you, I walked into my first facility, and I said, man, I got to change this. I got to change this. I got to do this. I got to do that. And I spent so much time in that building trying to get the perfect training facility.
Yeah, just so everything just so.
Yes, but that it turned out that we failed miserably.
Hmm.
Now the athletes didn't fail; we failed. Uh, and so the next building um, we had it ended up being a 9,800 square foot building, and
Wow.
we just focused on simple. What do we need? What can we get? And then what's available to the athletes when they're not with us?
Right.
The stuff you've been talking about, because we can have all this great stuff, but if that stuff's not available, then when they go home, then it's not going to help.
Right. They're not
Or
going to
when
do
they
it.
and going back to school. So speaking of, so somebody came back to Chicago University, I know that okay, you gotta. I can guess that you have a pretty good facility there.
Yeah,
Pretty
it's nice. We have a private, athlete only weight room, as well as a fitness center for the general student population. So it's nice to have private. We do have endeavors of making improvements, of course.
right.
Always
Yeah,
getting
yeah.
better. It to be honest, it's a little tight. Is the thing we have? It's a smaller space,
Right.
so we're endeavoring to make improvements just to serve more athletes at a time, so we don't have to break up training groups. I love the team lift atmosphere, and so it's like,
Right.
okay, yeah, it'd be great if we could all be together. It's tough when it's like, I can only do a group of 12 and a group of 15.
Right.
If we could do it all. So, but yeah, like, it's great to have private space that can be guided and owned by our staff.
But by the same token, I know that having went to a small school way back in the day, our weight room was the basement of a dormitory building.
Hmm.
But that's what we had. But there's some jokers
Yep.
that came out of there's some male and female athletes that came out of that weight room animals.
Yep.
You know what I
Because
mean?
gravity
But
works the same down there. Still
yeah,
heavy.
yeah. I mean, it's still, the principles of getting stronger and getting faster are still the same.
Right.
So you don't have to have all the fancy stuff, the bright shiny tools and all of that.
They
Um,
have their place, but they're not necessary.
yeah, see, and that's the whole point. If you can get them, great.
Yeah.
I'm not opposed to them,
No, absolutely not. Would love to
but
have them. Love
yeah,
love new toys.
exactly. But it's just that thing where it's you know if you ended up at a school that wanted you as an athlete, if you end up at a school that wanted you, and their facilities weren't what you thought you wanted to see as facilities, be patient, be part of the building, not part of the ignorance.
Right.
Because you're going to get if you're wanted, you're going to get an opportunity to compete. So you're going to have to use those facilities to get better. So how are you going to use them?
Absolutely.
You know, I had I had one parent ask me of a high school student because this high school specifically didn't have a really didn't have all high schools seem like they got great weight rooms now, but
Yeah.
this one didn't have one. They had a weight room, but it wasn't great, and it was big enough. It just they had all their stuff was rusty. It was kind of it was kind of an old gym,
Yeah.
you know. So the parents said, "Well, can he come over here during their weight room time after school and lift instead of being over there?" And I was like, "Absolutely not." I said, "Absolutely not." I said, "In the first place, you're trying to put me and the coach at odds because
Yeah.
he wants his team together." And I said, "And the second thing is, he needs to be over there more than he needs to be here with me.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do, I'm gonna do what they don't cover at the school because I've already talked to the coach."
Yep.
See, and that was my thing, and like I alluded to earlier, I, as a private practitioner, every year I was out there, whenever I got an athlete, I don't care if it was one athlete from one school, male or female, and the coach was, you know, overwhelmed. I would go to the
Hmm.
coach and say, "Hey, coach, Sarah's getting ready to start training with me. I know you guys, have a training program. If you would like me to instruct her in your program, I'm more than willing to do that. Or how can I help you?"
Yeah.
Because my thing
I
is about the coach. My thing is about a private practitioner being a value added to the coach. I'm I'm not I'm not part of your school or your competition. I don't want to. I'm not trying to make you better than the next school. I'm trying to make each individual athlete better.
You're a point of continuity.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. So, and um, I have my USA weightlifting certification as well. And when I was taking that course, the instructor said the role of the coach was to foster the spark. And so that spark is, remember when you were 8 or 10 and you got home from school on Friday afternoon and you just ditched your book bag and you laid out your jersey because you had a game Saturday morning and you didn't
Right.
care about what was for dinner or whatever. You had a game tomorrow morning. That spark that you had, that to do the thing that you love, it's the role of the coach to protect that and foster it. And I thought that was very profound.
Yeah.
And so so coming back to someone in a private sector working with athletes coming from a college setting where they might have another coach, insight can come from a lot of different places. So I love when people plug in to clubs or trainers back home and absolutely have that open door of, let's talk about what this athlete needs to be poised for success, because you might be seeing something totally different from me. As long as we agree that we are fostering that spark, I'll let you do what you think is best, as long as you know what you're talking about within reason.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but
I,
like, don't ever take away from that spark, because then you and I will have a problem.
yeah.
That's the thing.
That to me. To me, that's the fair part. I've been around so long. I've seen a lot. I've had athletes walk in, and first thing they start doing is bad mouthing, their coach. Well, or their parents start bad mouthing the coach, and the first thing I say is, "Look, I know Coach so and so, or I don't know Coach so and so, but I don't know too many coaches who purposely do the wrong thing. They don't start off that way. So what I don't do is what I don't do, and I told the parents and the athletes, I said, what I don't do is talk about any other professional or any other coach. I said, all I have is what I know. I said, I work with a lot of
Hmm.
those folks, so let's take the negativity out of the room right off the bat." And I'm usually halfway
Yep.
decent at disarming people in that manner. And most of the time, I don't really think, I really think they're trying to uh, maybe get my attention as opposed to to really badmouth the coach, because
Hmm.
if you really start talking, they say, well, I've just been frustrated with him, and I'm like, okay, frustration is fine, this and that. I said,
Sure.
but I guarantee you that coach wants the best for the athlete. I said, if
Yeah,
coach,
and I know
no, you're good, go.
I've talked to coaches. Yeah, I've talked to coaches about just confrontation. Just if there's ever a point of contention, um, it's not because I disagree with what you're doing or I'm trying to be critical. We might see things differently, but I'm getting hot about this topic because I'm invested, and I know you're getting hot about it because you're invested too.
Right.
So that if we can talk about the investment first. Hey, coach, I need to talk to you because I love your team and I want them to do well. So I'm going to make some changes to this thing that I can control. I need your support to make the changes that you can control in that thing. So yeah, the framing of it is super important. But it's like, I'm not trying to mess you up. I'm not trying to.
It's in nobody's best
Together,
interest
right?
for us to be at each other's throats.
Yeah, we're
No one.
acting in bad faith. Yeah, absolutely not. Yeah.
Yeah, I have never been that person. And really, I've known a lot of coaches and strength coaches over the years. And I don't know that I know two people that I thought, okay, you don't need to be in this profession. Because everybody that I did know, they started off, they care. We've all
Right.
been we've all stepped off the sidewalk a time or two. But if you care, it's easier to stop and get back up on the sidewalk. If you don't care,
Right.
that becomes a problem. But I've only known, I've heard of maybe a handful of people, but I've only known two people who I said to myself, well, he might want to go
Yeah.
sell insurance.
Yeah,
I mean?
and
But
we might
then
just care about different things.
right,
It's
right.
it's not that it's not that you don't belong here or whatever, but it's just like, ooh, okay, I see what you care about, and
Yeah.
that might be you might be able to serve this population better, or but it's like, I love that you care.
See, you are if they start from caring, you can do that.
Yeah.
And I tell you how you know if they start from caring or not. And this is a bit off the subject, but not too far off the beaten path. Athletes will let you know.
Oh yeah.
Athletes are very, very, very good at sniffing out BS. Or
They see everything.
Oh man, and they don't hold it in very long. Now, whether or not they tell you is kind of dependent upon you and what kind of relationship you have. But
Right.
they will talk about it, and there will be more than one athlete that knows. That's why sometimes when coaches get in trouble, I have a hard time. I'm like, who didn't know that this person was in trouble like this? Because
Mhm.
all you have to do, you don't even have to go ask an athlete. You just got to listen to what they talk about.
Oh yeah. Yep.
All you
Even
got-
though there's loud music playing in the gym, you can hear a lot.
Yeah, and so that's as we continue to talk about that, and caring as we go along, what is probably what is the number one thing under the caring title that that moves you
Hmm.
in this profession?
Yeah. So for me, like the three things that I highlight as the things that I value professionally are effort, communication, and humanity. I think effort and communication everyone kind of hits on, but for me, humanity kind of speaks to this a little better. That everyone is an amalgam of their own experiences. Like they're coming from different stuff, and the idea that every person you pass on the street has lived a lifetime of experiences, can be pretty wild to some people.
Right.
And so like being able to, we kind of talked about it earlier, making the space accessible to those that might not have ever had it presented to them before. Many of my female athletes come in and, have never done it. I've never done any kind of thing.
Right.
Because they're like, oh, the weight room was for the football team in high school, and we just didn't do that.
Exactly.
And it was, and so like, oh, okay, well, welcome. Let's talk about it. It's going to be loud and noisy, and it's going to be a little scary at times, and that's okay. And we'll talk about how to fail gracefully, and that's my job, to let you do that, to let you fail gracefully.
This is where failing is okay to a
Yep,
degree.
because you can't do it in the classroom and you can't do it on the field, but you're allowed to do it in here. And again, we'll do it safely, and we'll talk about what went wrong, and we'll fix it, and we'll get better. But yeah, so that the humanity aspect of like, some people are not gonna love it. And I say that I'm not really there for those that don't love it. And I hope that they someday grow to love it, and I want to show them that it's available, absolutely. But if you love it, I'm going to feed it to you, and we're going to celebrate it, and we're going to make it super exciting for those that don't love it yet, so that they want to love it.
Yeah, nothing, and this is just because we are professionals in this field, but nothing's better than walking in a weight room and seeing a group of athletes from different sports, or from the same sport. But for me, it's a lot of times it's different sports, because I'll have 5 volleyball players, 3 football players, 2, but seeing them all in there appreciating, even though the big lineman from football is about to yank 450 off the floor in a deadlift.
Yeah.
But watching the volleyball player or the soccer player, hang clean a $185, and be excited about it. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Because that's the most she ever got, or the most he ever got, or whatever. And then watching all of them come together because they know what that struggle is.
Right.
And it's what you're talking about. It's learning how to fail and push through that, and that humanity part.
Yeah, and I know with our teams, I always talk about, if you want to get that championship ring, you have to want it for every one of your teammates more than you want it for yourself, because you working for you isn't going to get you a ring.
It's never.
So if you can go into the weight room, or you can go to practice or whatever, and say like, hey, today I'm working my ass off for you. Like, okay, right back at you, dude. I'm in it with you. Like, I'm working for you today, also. Like, and that's how you do great things.
That's when you get them to look at it like that, that's a whole different scenario, and you can,
because like,
you can see it,
you can get all the playing time in the world. Yeah, hopefully it does. Hopefully they perk into it. But yeah, you can get the best stats, play as much as you want, but if everyone around you can't do those things, you might not be successful.
More importantly, they're unwilling to do it because of whatever reason it is.
Yeah, team politics, cliques, whatever. Like, even if you hate the guy's guts, work for him. Work in spite of him, whatever. But
I've seen I've seen teams come in where, and I specifically seen this on a female team for the first time, when I really recognized what it was. But there were 2 or 3 factions on the team, and and one of the 2 factions, or one of the 3 factions, really didn't like another faction.
Yeah.
But while they were on the field, they interacted something completely. The interaction was something different. But you would watch them hit the locker room, and they come out of the locker room in 3 groups. And you just watch it. Or you would walk around at like an event the team had, or and you would see how they would stand off from each other.
Right.
And then, but you had three captains um, that would walk around to all the groups. So
Yeah.
if you weren't paying attention, probably if you weren't me, you wouldn't pay attention to that. But I watched that. I said, okay, that's what's holding that together.
Hmm.
And
Yeah, and it happens so often. It happens
yeah,
with so many teams, and it's not necessarily unfortunate. It's good that they can turn it off. They
yeah,
can go to work, and there is something like, hey, I swam in college, and so we always joked about like there's nothing you can't really hide when you're spending
no,
3-4 hours a day together in just a speedo. Like
yeah,
there's
anywhere to
truly
go.
yeah, everyone knows everything, and it's like and so it is sometimes like, hey, we spend so much time together that like that ends up kind of being my limit. And there's like, not that that's a criticism or being mean, but it's
No,
just
I
like
get it.
there's no value to be gained from us straining our relationship by trying to hang out more. And that's fine,
Right,
totally. I don't need you to be my best friend. I need you to be my best teammate. Absolutely.
right.
And knowing where those boundaries exist is healthy. But yeah, sometimes it's a little clicky and a little political, and we don't
Yeah,
we don't love that. But
no,
it
and
can be good.
it's learning to navigate that as an athlete. Um,
And as an adult.
yeah, it's really learning to navigate that as an athlete paid dividends for me navigating it as an adult.
Oh, sure.
To be honest, because I can separate from somebody and they're right in the same room
Yeah. And
nowadays.
like, appreciate that they're there,
Yeah, I have
but
no
just like,
problem with them, but I don't really need to run over and say hello to so and so.
yeah, and that's
Totally good.
fine.
And then when I see him at wherever we work together or whatever, hey, yeah, I saw you at the thing the other night. That was pretty good, huh? Yeah, okay, cool, bye. It's not a
Yeah.
big deal. Nobody was mad that we didn't speak while they were there or whatever. Because he probably didn't want to talk to me either. It's just one of those things.
Yeah, and that's,
Uh,
yeah, totally fine.
but folks, we've digressed just a little bit, but we're talking
Oh,
about team.
sure.
We're talking about team dynamics and team stuff and how you recognize it as a coach and the role of the strength coach in that when it is recognized, if there's a role at all. Sometimes there's no role; they already got it handled.
Yeah.
So you just kind of watch and keep moving. Okay, let's go to the next question. I always look up and go, God, I'm almost out of time, so we're down to the last two questions,
Sure.
and we've almost gone an hour, and we've
Yeah.
just been talking. But anyway,
Yeah,
um,
that's the best.
let's talk. Let's tell me a little bit about the advice you would give to young you now.
Hmm.
So you're a freshman, sophomore in college. You're swimming. You're doing that
Hmm.
stuff. You're thinking. This is about the time you start thinking about. Okay, I'm probably would like to go into strength and conditioning. So, what advice would you give young you at that point?
Um, like I said pretty early on, there's the education and the experience that you need to marry. Absolutely. To move into this professional setting, you have to do both of those things. So, yeah, young Dustin, you can expect that focusing on your education first, although important,
Right.
didn't open all the doors you expected it to. Getting hands-on experience early would serve you well. Um, yeah, I got my master's degree, and was applying for jobs. And one of the questions I would get in interviews was, were you a GA? And I wasn't. I had to work a job to put myself through grad school. So,
No
was
time to
tough.
be a GA. Yeah.
Yeah, no time to be a GA. So it was like, nope, I didn't, but I was able to like do these lab experiences in my curriculum, and we had these speakers from the Penguins and the Steelers, and like so it's like trying to name drop, and it's like you didn't work with them. It's like, yeah, you're right. So yeah, to all the young coaches out there, try to get that internship. I know it's not great to go unpaid, and but 6 months
That's
goes by in a flash, and it's good to get in it.
Yeah, that's a professional question that maybe we'll ask and talk about next time.
Sure.
You know, I think it's important to get those internships and those graduate assistant gigs and stuff like that. I wish more would open on with more teams like volleyball team, swim team. Because
Right.
if you open up more, it's not just what it's really about is getting the experience and actually getting to work with an athlete, getting to coach
Yeah.
on some level. Whereas it's not just about working with the football team.
Yeah, it's
And
not
and
it's not
then
doing a job. It's
right,
it's gaining experience.
right. So I know for me, and and a lot of that happened. Um, I did some. I did some with a lot of small colleges, but a lot of that happened with teams while I was in the military as well. So you know, I, my road is a little bit like that,
Hmm.
but by the same token, yeah, that's some great advice. Don't be afraid to get the sooner you get it, the less painful it is,
Hmm.
because the requirement to eat or take care of a family or to do those things you can kind of manipulate a little bit when you're a younger guy as
Yeah.
opposed to waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting. um,
Yeah. And it's not a problem to say, to give a call, shoot an email, and say, hey, what have you got for me? You
yeah,
can reach out
anything.
to those, because people are looking for help. They might not be able to support it long term, but it's a foot in the door.
Yeah, I tell a couple of guys that so I take interns from time to time, and I've told a couple of guys, I said your next gig should be you've done this in the private sector now, and you've learned how to foster that relationship. Your next gig should be in the institution setting.
Hmm.
Well, I don't, I've tried to get into colleges. I've tried to get into. I said, well, have you tried to get into high schools?
Yep.
I said, try to get into a high school. High schools will usually take an intern pretty quick.
Yeah.
And there's some pretty good high school strength coaches out there. There,
Oh
there are
yeah.
some. There are some that could easily be at the professional level, or the collegiate level, or whatever. But they chose to be where they are for whatever reason.
Yep.
All right. The next question is a fun question.
Excellent.
Last question. If you had to choose an athlete by position or sport who would succeed at any other sport that they chose to play or participate in at a high level, which athlete and what position would they play? You don't have to name a name, but just like, would it be a swimmer and diver, or
Hmm.
diver and this, or swimmer and that, or soccer player position, whatever?
Oh, taking someone out of their sport and putting them in a different sport, or
Right.
just what kind of? Okay. So as much as I want to say swimmers, just having been one, um, or like really enjoy Olympic weightlifting. So like as much as I want to say an Olympic weightlifter, very technical skills. I feel like gymnasts are just wildly athletic. Um, so I would put a gymnast, someone, floor routine certainly has some aspects, but like someone who can do rings or bars or anything like that, like yeah, just wildly athletic, and I'd put them in, you know,
You're
I'd put
number.
them in any sport,
I think you're the second or third person that's chosen gymnast. But I could
Sure.
I could I could see that with, especially with the vaulters. they have to have a certain level of explosiveness,
Hmm.
and they have to be, technically they should be a pretty good sprinter.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
Not
and just
not all are, but they should be. And then there's a lot of things that go into that vault, and by the same token, the floor routine. But then the added strength of the added overall strength of the rings of the bars, working on those, and the balance on the beam. There's a whole package there somewhere you can put together and stick in
yeah.
another sport.
And
So
they might be small, but I don't know. I don't think that's so bad. Maybe
yeah,
they wouldn't play basketball for me, but there've been a lot of short kings running around the basketball court making a lot of
yeah,
noise.
yeah. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, this is Yule Gordon at Performance Talk. We've been here today with Dustin Steider. It's been a great conversation. As usual, it's gone on, and we've come to the end, Dustin, and we have to say goodbye for now. But we're definitely going to check in with you in the future, see what you're up to, and see how everything's going with you.
Wonderful. Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate the time, and yeah, like I said, always happy to talk about it. I think what we get to do is pretty cool.
It is, and ladies and gentlemen, that's Performance Talk with Yule Gordon and Chris Costa. Chris will be back with us in the future. In the meantime, Dustin, we had a great conversation today, and we are complete.
Thank you. Thank you.